Hey guys, this is Alex from SkyRC. Okay, you can see we got the plane cut out now. And I didn't mention this before, but I did this with just a straight blade like I showed before. But you can use just a regular pair of scissors too if you want. At least for when you're doing the outside cuts. When you go to start doing this stuff, you're gonna need to use some sort of blade of some sort. But if you don't want to use a blade, you can use a scissor to at least get you to this point. So just know that's an option. Now, I got some foam underneath the airplane. You can kind of get an idea of how big the airplane is going to be. And now the next phase is going to be to go ahead and tape it down to the foam. Now, I like to use, for these profile planes, I like to go ahead and take the paper off the foam. And I'm using the dollar store foam board by Adams, the Adams Ready board. Now, to get the foam off, it's actually pretty easy. Or sorry, to get the paper off, let me pull the plans off here. Okay, so normally what I do is I'll just start at a corner and just kind of use my nail and lift up, and you can see that it comes right off. And then you just going to continue to roll this off. Try to be careful, don't crease the foam or anything. Just do it nice and slow, and you'll be able to get it off. Now I got 3 sheets here. I think that should be plenty for this plane. And I'm going to take the paper off from both sides. Now, once you get it all off, and I haven't taken it off yet on this side, but you're going to want to tape it down. So, what I like to do, the best tape to use for this, honestly, is the, if you know anyone that does scrapbooking, they make these little tape dispensers that look almost like a whiteout pen. And you can go in there and add these little strips of tape on here, and it works out great. And what you want to do is you want to put them on the back of the planes themselves. So for the main fuselage piece, you would want to do probably in the nose area, here at the wing brake, at the tip, over here, and then probably a couple on the back, and maybe even one here in the middle. Don't be shy about using a good amount of tape. The more tape you use, the better it'll stay put down onto the foam, so when you go to cut out, it's not going to move on you. So that's what I like to do. Now, I mentioned the scrapbooking tape. If you don't have that, masking tape is probably your next best bet. What you can do is rip a piece off and then roll it up on itself, kind of like that. And once you rip this off, and you can just stick that down in different places. So to kind of show you here. So you can then roll that up like that, and you can stick this wherever you want, and put a few of them on there, and then go ahead and stick it down to your foam. Now, the reason I like to use masking tape, and you can use Scotch tape, but especially if you're gonna keep your paper on, which you can do, and for the flight test plans, you're gonna be keeping your paper on. It's better to use something like masking tape because it's less likely to rip up the paper when you go to pull your plans back off of the foam. So, and I'll be honest, I actually do tend to use the Scotch packing tape more than masking tape, but really this is better because it will do less damage to the foam and especially your paper. Now, if you're pulling the paper off of the foam, the Scotch tape really isn't going to hurt the foam that much in most cases, so you can get away with that. But if you can't use that scrapbooking tape that's double-sided, this is the next best thing to use. Is just roll up. Now, normally I would do this smaller, maybe like half this size, and then just put them on different parts of the different parts. So I'm showing this one because this is the biggest part by far. Now, one thing you'll probably notice is that the piece is a lot bigger than the foam. So when and you're going to run into this with pretty much any park jet like this. So what I would do is I would put this on here so that it's just flush with the back, and then go ahead and tape it down as it is. You're gonna have some hanging off the edge. Once you get that all taped down and solid, and in this case, because you have an edge ending right here on the foam, I would have some tape on the underside running right in this area, so that it's nice and firm down on the edge. And once you get it on there, you're gonna flip this whole thing upside down like that. So now we're upside down, and you're gonna get your knife and you're gonna go and trim this right on the edge of the foam, and then this piece that you end up with is gonna go on another piece of foam. And then obviously, to minimize scrap, you're gonna want to lay your planes out to try to maximize the amount of foam you use for the parts and minimize any scrap. So try to kind of layer them in there like a jigsaw puzzle as best as you can. Now, most of the pieces are just going to be one-offs. The nose here, but the sides, it even says right here, make 2. So you're going to need to make 2 of these. So don't just, definitely don't throw away the plans when you're done with the first one. What I like to do sometimes is, after I cut this out of the foam, I'll just trace it even with the foam still stuck on to make the second one. Or if you can, you gently pull the plans off of the foam and then just retrace out another one. And then I wait till I get the pieces cut out of the foam to even worry about any of these little marks on here. We'll talk about that when we get to that stage. But for now, the next step is going to be to go ahead and pull the paper off of my foam and tape these down, and then cut them out. So that'll be the next phase. Okay, so we got the planes taped down to the foam now. I went ahead and pulled the paper off, and I got everything taped down using the masking tape. So now we are ready to go ahead and cut. Oh yeah, and you can see up here, I just took the top of the nose off there because it wouldn't fit. But generally speaking, it fit on here pretty good. I probably could have made a little bit better use of the foam. I think I may have even been able to get it down to 2 sheets instead of 3, but I'm not that worried about it, being that it's only $1 a sheet. So, and I'll be able to use the scraps for other projects. So when you go to cut this part, you will have to use a blade of some sort. So I'm going to go back to my my utility knife blade here, and especially when you're just cutting the foam without the paper, you need to be really careful as you go around, because it's easy to get offline a little bit and then start to cut improperly and make the part not correct. So just take your time, make sure you keep the blade as vertical as possible, and if you do mess up, it's not the end of the world. As long as you really didn't mess up your plan, you can just lift it up off of the foam, move it to another free spot, or get another piece of foam if you need to, and then and just redo it. It's not a big deal. Worst case scenario, you may have to reprint part of the plans back out to get the piece. If you messed up the plans, print it back out just to get whatever you need, and then just fix that one part of the plan. But again, if you take your time, you really shouldn't have much of an issue. So just to show you kind of how I do it, I just to pick an easy piece here, I'm just gonna kind of just gently press into the foam. I have a cutting board underneath my foam, and then I'm just going to gently press into the foam. And the first cut, you can actually just kind of score it a little bit. So I'm not going all the way through the foam, and I'm just following that line. And you have to bear with me since I'm doing this with one hand. But I am not going all the way through. I'm just kind of outlining, tracing the edge. It's good to do that, especially. It's funny that these blades will actually dull pretty quickly between the foam and the cutting mat. You'll start to lose the bite on the edge, and what's nice is I can just flip it around and use the other edge. But eventually you'll lose the bite on the blade, and as that starts to happen, you're gonna have to do more and more of the scoring, gradually getting more and more deep into the foam. When you have a brand new sharp blade, it's not gonna be an issue. You're gonna cut right through, and in that case, you need to be even more careful when you're tracing, just to make sure that you don't inadvertently, deviate from the lines of the plans. And like I said before, we're not going to worry about any of these interior details until we get the parts cut out. That will be the next step, is once these are out of the main sheets of foam, then I'm going to go back in here and take all these little pieces out. And I'll probably do that without actually recording it, but just so you can see, most of what we're taking out are just little notches for everything to go together. Occasionally you'll have some information here, like this is actually your control surface, so so you can actually cut on this line if you want to when you cut it out of the foam, or you can do it later on, but that's what this line is here. This is for optional rudder, which I'm not going to be doing, and then I will be doing the aileron, so I'll be cutting this out later on. This is for your spar. This is for your motor and propeller. I'm trying to see the other plans here. What else we have? And then you have things like battery hatches and all that. So I guess we'll go ahead and just talk about it now. When you have details like these, one thing you can do, in this case, you could just literally just cut this out if you need to. But here I'm looking and it says battery position. So this is actually not something that needs to be removed. This is just telling you where the battery goes. So when you have a case like that and you just want to maybe mark a location, a good thing to do is to just take the blade and just put some little indents at the corners, just to kind of mark the location. So you're just pushing through the paper. You don't even really need to go into the foam that much, just to kind of mark it. You could do this with thumbtacks or anything else that's sharp. So now when I lift that plan up, I'm going to have the corners of this marked, and I'll know that there was a box there. Because I see that there is a notch right here, and this wouldn't be here if you were supposed to cut this out. So, and then you have center of gravity is a very important thing to mark. You're going to want to make sure that you know exactly where this is, and it looks like here it says center of gravity 7 centimeters from wing brake. So, so this is the wing brake. This is what's marking the wing brake, and then the center of gravity is going to be 7 centimeters back from here, and I believe they marked it right here. So I'm going to definitely want to mark this location so that I can reference this later on when we get ready to set up our plane. Let's see. We also have intake leading edge. So I'm not sure exactly what these details are yet. I'm thinking this is marking where the foam is going to be when we start putting it together, so it's not really that important. And these are just instructional lines telling you, about where your control rods will need to go. I noticed that they took the liberty of marking the location of the servos. Now this is a good reference. You don't have to put it right here. This is just a suggestion. I may or may not keep that mark. And then this is for the doublers, which are these long skinny pieces. Will go where these are marked. So this will be another one that I'll want to mark by indenting the foam at the edges, so I know where that doubler needs to go when it comes time to put everything together. So I'll go ahead and cut these out. Like I said, you're gonna want to trace kind of lightly, maybe kind of halfway through the foam, and then go back in and do your final cut. That'll help make sure that you don't wiggle the knife blade too much. Since you've already made a score cut, the knife is going to want to kind of follow that little groove you've made, and when you go the second time to kind of try to cut all the way through, it'll be much more accurate that way. Okay, well, I'll cut this out and then we'll go on to the next phase. Okay, so we got everything cut out. I was actually able to find that scrapbooking tape that I was talking about earlier, called Crafter's tape here. And it's got little cartridges that you can replace on the inside, and the double-sided tape comes off from here and on this roller, and you can put as much or as little as you want. When you actually start rolling it in, you can just roll it and then lift it up, and you have like a little sticky strip there. It's real handy for these types of projects, so just wanted to throw that out there as an option. Okay, so we got everything cut out. You can see here where the line for the nose was. I've taken out all the interior details. I did not cut the carbon spar. area, that's what this black line is for. I did do this because depending on if you're using carbon fiber or some carbon rod or wooden dowel or fiberglass rod, the size and length of this may vary a little bit depending on your situation. So I didn't want to cut that out until I have a chance to talk about it in the next step. But everything else got cut out. The ailerons, the elevons, they all got cut out. Okay, so then another thing I want to talk about here you can see where I have the hatch, and this actually will need to be cut all the way through eventually, but just to show one technique is one thing you can do is you can I just took the tip of my knife and I just made an indent here, literally just cutting through the paper and putting a slight indent into the foam, so I can reference that later if I don't want to cut all the way through, right this second. And you can see here these are where the extra foam is going to go, so I did the same thing as I did before, and I did little tick marks in the corners here. Another thing I wanted to mention, you may have seen this, you may not have seen it, but this is the motor mount plans. Now I didn't cut these out yet out of the paper because I usually just kind of freehand those. That is not an exact science of how big you make these things, as long as you can center, as long as it's big enough to center your motor on it. And you have one piece that's made out of like a plywood, a thin plywood, and then the other piece will be made out of a little bit of the foam. And they also have a little bit of a plan here for the control arms, but I probably won't be using that. Okay. Another thing I wanted to mention is on these side pieces. You see I cut two identical pieces out. However, one thing you want to be careful with, whenever you have something like this that's identical, and especially if you were to have two vertical stabilizers here, I just have one. But if you were to have two of these, and on this thing, there are some marks I had to make for the doublers that go on here. Make sure that when you go to do your marking, that you flip one side over. So what I mean by that is I have the original plans here. Okay, so this actually matches up here like this. Okay, so what I did is I made my little tick marks here, but when I go to make them on this side, I actually need to flip the plans over so that you get a mirror image. And because the ink here is nice and dark, you can see through even through the back side of the paper, and so you're going to make your same marks but from this side with the paper on this side. So it'll be that way you have the mirror image of both parts. So anytime you have symmetrical parts like that, you want to do that. Okay, and I think that's pretty much all I wanted to talk about at this point. We're not ready to actually start the construction process, so if you've been following me and you made it this far, congrats, because I think this really is the most tedious part of the build. From here on out, you're really going to start seeing the plane come together. It's going to be all the construction phase, so things will start moving pretty quick, and you'll start seeing your airplane form. But anyway, that will be the next video, so I'll see you then.